Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to another edition of the Brothers of Legacy. I'm your host, AD Walker, the pusher, the grower, the motivator. We're going to have a great broadcast today. Today, we're talking about um, slavery movies, hood movies. Are they helping us or are they just exposing more trauma? Um, and we're going to dig into it. I have my folks hanging in the wings. I got another dude, aka Mr. Thomas Cotton. We got Kadeem, aka Patra. I don't know if you remember Patra. I won't throw you away for that. We got Pastor Brian McCrory, aka Just a Guy. He said, "Hey, morning, AD. Got it. Go Facebook for today. No more torn rocks." I must have been banned Zuckerberg by accident. Right. Can't mess with Zuckerberg. What's up, Lisa? Good morning. Good morning. Yes, Jeff is in Facebook jail for making bad comments. All right, so hang tight. Hold on. We'll be right back. Right after this, we're going to just kick this off. Where's that? Where's it? All right. Nope. I think I have too much over here. There we go.
Stand up.
And good morning.
Good morning.
Yo.
Happy Thursday.
Yes, it is.
Yes, happy Thursday. Friday.
We got Raphael Warnock back in the Senate. Brittany Griner released. We got Donald Trump on his way to jail. Man.
There we go. There we go. See? That he was doing good. Then we hit you. Then he hit us with the fake news. Then he hit us with
no barking at the dog, no smog.
Mama took the breast, no hog.
Oh man. So today's topic is: are we teaching or making things worse? Yesterday we kind of left off talking about slavery movies and hood movies. And see that Jeff starting already. So what I want to discuss, I'm tired of slavery movies. You ever seen that one when my man was like, "I'm tired of this church." So I'm tired of slavery movies. I'm a little worn out with hood movies. I told my daughter that. I think we were watching something in the barbershop. It was like a BET special, if y'all know what I mean by that. Those BET
low budget, low budget movies.
Yeah, those hood movies that they feel like it's just bad camera angles. They just kind of freestyling the script. And so like I've grown tired of a lot of those movies because I feel like it's not helpful. And unfortunately, I wonder if other races feel like this sometimes. Just they're casting us in a bad light. Do anybody else? You feel like does it? You feel like you're not being represented right? So I've grown tired of the slavery movies because I feel like I feel like I'm there. I feel like I'm stuck. Back then, like I'm in the field across the street watching this thing happen while I'm stuck picking cotton too. It's I've grown tired of it, and so I want to get you guys' opinion, see how you feel about it. And even not really I've never grown up in the hood where there was violence and things like that happening around me. Most of the worst things I've seen were more on TV than in front of me. If that makes sense. And it just, I don't know. I don't like it. So I got Thomas here, and he spoke about the trauma, reliving the trauma. So Thomas, how do you feel about the slavery movies? And you can parlay into the hood movies, but is it helpful? Or do you feel like, based on your studies and personally, you feel like
Right.
that?
So, my thought about slavery movies and hood movies are two different thoughts. There's some times where we have to think about slavery movies in a different sense. For me, slavery movies are more for white people not to forget than it is for black people not to forget. And I know that's not probably a popular opinion, but the reality is we have to keep these things in front of them to remind them that this country is not fair.
Right.
And so a lot of times having those types of movies is a good educational piece for them. Now, there are some educational pieces for us, but the reality is this. We look at right now, we can go outside and if we're really intentional about looking around us, we can still see remnants of slavery all around us.
Okay.
We have the prison industrial complex that is a clear representation of slavery. So we don't have to look so far for these means of seeing remnants of slavery. They're not subtle either, and so we don't need another slavery movie. Now, here's another reason why I say this about slavery movies. How many times have you heard somebody say, "Ooh, when I see that movie, I'm gonna get so angry. I'm gonna be this. And they start talking about the way they're gonna feel about this slavery movie because there is this traumatic part of it. We're still living through some of the trauma that's been passed throughout generations, and it's not that long ago. People make it seem like all this stuff happened, so long ago, but okay, so we can say slavery ended in late 1800s, but at the same time, did it really end? No. And then we see how it continues to perpetuate, and then we see, well, you have civil rights. Well, civil rights was what, 70 or 60 years ago? So as we're starting to think back, it's like 60 years ago wasn't that long. I'm 50, so it's not like we're sitting up here thinking of something that happened so long ago and it's not current. And then, the narrative that's trying to be changed right now is, let it go. Just let it go. It was so long ago. But then, we see that recently with the Holocaust, they're not letting that go. They're not going to let 9/11 go. They're not going to let other things go. And so when we start talking about slavery movies, how does it impact our people? And does it really benefit? Now, there are some movies about slavery that I think will educate. And, yesterday when we were getting off, there were so many different, conversations happening, or when you got all getting off, I was in the chat and, and it was about bringing in the movies. What movies would you, talk about that would be good slave movies, if there is such a thing? I actually looked up something. It was Netflix has this list of good slave movies. I'm like, really?
Get them good slave movies. You gotta get one of them good slave movies.
You gotta get one of them good slave movies. And I'm like, really? You have a list? But there's some things that we have to really remember. And there's things that we do. Pastor made a point about education. And educating, using these as education. And I get it. I think Roots is the only movie you need about slavery to educate you, if you can make it through. And so, as you mentioned, I think you may have never finished watching Roots, but Roots has a lot of depth to it. It has a lot of truth to it. There's a lot of different other things. So, I mean, why do we need another slavery movie? Now, I know that's not, there's so much more that's happened since then, but 13th, if we look at 13th on Netflix, is a good movie to really think about how things are looking when there's slavery. PBS has a documentary called Slavery by Another Name. It's a good one to really get out there. If we want to think about it, my hat says Black Wall Street. Black Wall Street Burning is a good movie to understand like what was being built. Rosewood. There's, there's Runaway Slave, which talks about the welfare system and, how different other things are. And then, you have Race to Freedom about the Underground Railroad and different other things. There's so many other movies that we can watch when it comes to slavery that will empower versus, traumatize. And I think when we look at what's happening in our society, if we want to see if there's a collective trauma, when one person gets beat, we all get beat. When Rodney King got beat, we were all right there, like, see, right there, you get us now, you see it. And then when they were found not guilty, we were all hurt. And so, you know, there's a lot of different ways of looking at it. Now I'll get to hood movies later, you know, because there are some hood movies that I think we should watch. I think there are hood movies that need to be watched. But, you know, when we start talking about being in the hood and watching hood movies, there's movies that people watch like Scarface to kind of keep them in that zone. And, you know, I don't think we should watch hood movies from the standpoint of keeping us in that zone. You know, Scarface is not the best example of a hood movie to watch. And we'll talk a little bit about that. But, you know, I want everybody else to chime in about the slavery.
Definitely.
And there's more to it, but yeah.
Definitely. How do you guys feel about the slavery movies? Like them, hate them, in between, like, it doesn't bother you? It's always reference. How you guys feel about it?
Man, I mean, I've seen a bunch of them,
right?
And I guess I'm with Thomas on the roots, because it takes you from Africa to almost the whole slavery lineage, like from when they was taken to when they was free. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I believe that would be educational, but it just depends, because that was probably the most historical. And they had good acting. You know what I'm saying? I got to go by that too. If it's bad acting, and I can read a book to get more information, because I'm disturbed by the acting. You know, but it just depends. To answer your question, it don't bother me. You know what I'm saying? I can watch a slave movie, it don't bother me. But if it's bad acting, then I just turn it off. But if it's good acting, I'll watch it all the way through.
I got you. Pastor, how you feel about the slave movies? Oh, you muted. I didn't do it, I don't think. Yeah, you did it.
That's because I was typing. I saw Roots when it first came out in the 70s. I was a boy. And of course I was a boy. It was the 70s.
Are you really?
It was challenging. It was challenging to see. I didn't understand it at the time. It was nasty to me. I remember eating a peanut butter sandwich watching Roots. And to this day, I don't eat peanut butter sandwiches.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
That's how difficult it was. It was traumatic for me to see the treatment of people. And it was back then, it wasn't one movie. It was like a week-long
4-part series, 5-part series.
4-part. And so my mom had us watch it for educational purposes. I didn't like it.
Right.
Later on in life, I felt like it was a necessary evil. And then I changed it to an uncomfortable education.
Right.
I think that it's important to understand where we come from.
Right. I got you.
And sometimes some stories are hard to tell, but I think they're still necessary.
Right.
Now, I believe that we go over the top with certain things, but that's for the cameras. That's for the attraction, you know.
Right.
But I don't see a world. I would not agree that we ignore stuff like that. I think it's important to put it out there.
I hate you on that. It's funny because kind of as Thomas was talking, you know, sometimes you be like, you start hearing kind of like a different perspective. And he mentioned some of the movies that have already been made, you know, Roots, you know, things that kind of give a historical reference. What I do have to realize, I guess, entertainment puts things in people's faces. And like Ephraim mentioned yesterday about the grants given to those that make movies about the Holocaust. You know, it's because as far as what I heard anyway, like Putin and some folks in Russia they call them Holocaust deniers, saying it never happened. So it's like we need to keep putting stuff out there to show like, hey, this happened. Like and for the slavery fight, as far as being out front, maybe every decade, maybe there should be maybe a movie, just something saying, hey, next generation can kind of see something newer, because watching Roots now, because of technology, sometimes watching older movies because of the flow and how people used to watch certain things, it's a little harder. I think didn't they make a remake of Roots lately, like last few years?
No, they a remake.
They remastered.
I thought somebody remade Roots.
I don't know if I don't think they remade Roots. I just think they remastered it. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, maybe remastered. Okay, I thought they remade it. Which wouldn't be surprising because it seems like they're remaking everything.
Right.
It wouldn't be surprising. Hello, Alicia says, I think there's a different perspective with each movie. Some are redundant, right? There's still so much people don't know about how brutal slavery was. Ooh, do we not know? I don't know.
Well, let me throw something in there. Like, a lot of people don't understand the depth of the brutality. And they, we will gloss over that depth.
Right.
But how many people know about Black Wall Street in the Greenwood District?
Yeah.
A lot of people didn't know about it until the 100th year anniversary,
right.
And which was last year. And so, ultimately, like, there's other stories that need to be told. There's other stories that we need to stop, overlooking, because it leaves a gap in information, as if, we just went from slavery to where we're at right now.
Right.
When I was locked up, the last book I was reading when I was locked up was called From Slavery to Freedom. And I didn't know it was a textbook. I didn't know it was a school textbook. I was just reading. and there's so much information in that book that makes us see how difficult slavery was. And then it also showed how difficult it is post-slavery to try to make a person engage a system that was never for them. And so when we start thinking about these movies, how are we getting our people to engage a system that's not for them? Or are we having them relive certain fears and hurts and trauma and everything else that keeps us in a certain place? Like, we're so much more than slavery. And that's one of the things that I think that really we don't get to that point. Again, we don't want to forget about it because it's happening. It's not that long ago. And there are still remnants, a lot of remnants that are still present today. But it's important for us to be able to move beyond that and realize that we're so much more. And that there's been so many other things that have happened, not just civil rights, not just, sharecropping. Does anyone know about sharecropping? Does anyone know about the prison industrial complex? These other things that keep people in involuntary servitude.
Right.
So,
yeah, it's there's so much more to it, and I think I love the fact that you said, and I've seen on T-shirts as well. I was more, we're more than just slavery. Our past is more than just slavery. And because I think there's a time we just got caught up, because that's all you thought about when you thought about the past was slavery, never beforehand, never where we really came from, what the climate was, and things of that nature. Alicia also said, I watched Roots in elementary in the 80s. I said every year during Black History Month, I was the only Black person in every class. Wow, most of my white friends apologized and asked, could I think at that? Oh, asked, I could think at that time. These people are not me. when I got older, I understood where they were coming from. Gotcha. I guess asking.
Pastor made a good point, though. It is one of those things where when you're young, you don't like it. And then as you grow older, you get more mature and you realize it's a necessary evil to learn. I think a lot of the younger generation, they're taking on the mindset of, the collective mindset that this really doesn't matter. It wasn't me. And that we have, many other opportunities, but they don't see the world truly around them. I'm one of the people that, right or wrong, I believe that our system has never been for us. And even though there's opportunities right now, those opportunities are limited. I don't care what we think about Ye, but you can be a billionaire and get snatched quickly. And if you're not singing the tune that we want you to sing, if you're not shucking and jiving, it's just we're playing that game's being played at a higher level now, with more money and, with influencers. And so they're taking the influencers, there's so many people have different opinions about Deion Sanders right now because of that. Are you selling out? Are you doing this? Are you moving? Are you, using your platform for upward mobility? Are you looking out for yourself? Didn't you say you were going to be this savior to the HBCUs? You were the one saying God brought you here. There's so many different opinions about it because of the system that we have in front of us, because of the way the system has taken heroes and either taken them out or paid them to shut up, and so, or to sing a certain song. And so, that's still a part of what goes on today. Hidden Figures is an excellent movie.
It is. I love Hidden Figures. Yeah. It was a great movie.
It was a safe movie.
It was safe, but it was excellent still.
After all put together. But I guarantee
great actor.
Yeah, I guarantee you that they softened up whatever treatment actually happened. So you have to think about that. And that's the whole point, right? No one will take it seriously if no one understands the depth of the anguish, the pain that was experienced. Sometimes you have to see it to understand, to empathize, to feel it. And that's just the truth. And the problem is that for some, it triggers reliving it.
Right.
But people will never understand if they don't empathize, if they can't feel your pain. Nothing against Jeff. I wouldn't expect Jeff to see it from our perspective, but his comment that he made, I'm trying to see where his comment was. Where is it?
Well, this one, right? It was a real eye opener for me.
I couldn't understand the inhumanity. Jeff is saying that in 2022.
Right.
Yeah.
How many other people have said it? Because the reality is they're still trying to take us back. Ooh. So how could there be such a misunderstanding? It still hasn't resonated with people. So it's important to tell the story.
Yeah.
If for nothing else, for the next generation. And we do see improvement in the mindset of young people because we have this history and it's exposed. I don't like it, but I think it's necessary.
Yeah.
And I think, but it has to be within a training, a teachable moment.
Yeah.
When we start thinking about this generation and the lack of understanding that we have, it's because we're not teaching them in the proper context. I think they're able to look at something and determine and judge for themselves, because we want you to have your own mind. We want you to think for yourself, which is not a problem, but I think there's still some information that needs to be added for context sake. You think about the four of us here, our grandparents have a whole different story that they told us.
Right.
And it's because of the things that they've been involved with, right? So my grandfather was born in 1915, and his grandfather, was a slave. So it's like, that's right there in front of us. It's not like we're so far removed from this. I remember the stories my dad told me about how he was raised. He was born in 1944, and how he was raised and the things that he had to go through. I was born in 1972, and I still felt it. And and in this day and age, I have a 9 and a 10-year-old, and they're feeling it. There's things that they tell me that cause them to feel it. And so in this, I think the educational piece is absolutely necessary. But I do think there is a progression of how do we get beyond that to a point where we know that this was history, but it doesn't hold us back from our future.
Right.
And I think that's where we start talking about these hood movies, right? And the propaganda that's out there today, right? Because as we start looking at how we're portrayed in movies, representation matters. And we talk about that a lot. And so when I was growing up, of course, all the hood movies, the gang banging movies and stuff, New Jack Cities, the Boys in the Hood, Menace to Society, and so on and so forth, they were all in my era, those types of movies. Of course, you had the movies before that, the Superflies and the, I can't even think of the other 70s cult classics and stuff. But they,
you talking about Superfly?
Right.
Yeah, Superfly. There's other ones though. There's a whole.
Dolomite.
Oh yeah, they got a bunch.
Dolomite.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, not Dolomite.
Oh yeah.
That's the history.
But what
is that?
Go ahead.
But there's all these other things that we start to think about in the how we're represented in the movies, right? The foolery, the everything else. But you get the Malcolm X movies that come through and it makes you think about stuff, but man, that's 3 hours long. I don't know if you want to sit here and listen.
Good movie though. It held you.
Right.
So
that's a 4-part series. But it's just when we start thinking about the movies, there are still some hood classics I think that people should watch because of the realism that's within them. So, for example, Menace to Society is one that I think everybody should watch. Right? That's out of my hood movies. That's probably my favorite because I've never been to a movie before where I didn't want to walk out the movie because if I walk out, this could happen to me. Right? The type of lifestyle I was living at that time, that's exactly how I felt. Like I can literally walk out this movie theater and get shot. Yeah. And the soundtrack with it, really told the story also, or at least the MC8's song. So Menace would be one of those that I think that people should look at. And then it's not a movie, but it's a TV show. I think everybody should watch the first season of Snowfall, which is on FX. And so the first season of Snowfall tells a story of what happened in the hood. It's a loosely based story, but from what I know, from the people I know that are involved with these types of things and how I was involved with them, I think that, it's one that people should watch that first season because there's a lot of accuracy there. And so no one will say it. It's, pushed under the rug and, it's one of those taboo things to talk about how the crack got into the communities, but there's some things that we could watch for educational purposes. But then at the same time, I'm more mature. You give someone else who's younger, who doesn't have that maturity to watch these same movies, and now they're glorifying them and saying, I want to be like O-Dog. I want to be like O-Dog, right? Yeah. And yeah, so there's a fine line between education and exploitation.
Right.
Absolutely. But it's relative though. One person's education is another person's exploitation.
Absolutely.
Because when you talk about the movies, you're talking about movies that are relatable to you. Right. And what I'm saying is we come to these other movies, it may not be as relatable to me, but it's definitely relatable to someone. What I might feel is over the top. Someone will say, I felt that, and that's why I feel like it's important for us to put it out there. I completely agree. Exploitation. I mean, when they put this stuff out there, they wanted to sell, they wanted to make money. And that's where it's important for us to have those bridges of communication. the elders, the mentors, the more mature crowd to come in and kind of fill in those gaps so people can understand, what's Hollywood and what's reality, right? And that's where communication is critical, so that we don't get the wrong outcome. When you talk about people wanting to be O-Dog, that's someone who went and watched the movie and didn't have any parental supervision.
Right.
Right. When I went back in the day, we paid 25 cents or 50 cents to go see a movie. And most of the time it was martial arts or Blackula or something like that. We came out, I wanted to be Blackula. I wanted to be a vampire, not a werewolf. Right.
He took us way back though.
All that stuff. Remember,
Right.
What is the rap group named after a martial arts movie?
Wu-Tang.
Wu-Tang.
Thank you. Those are young people watching TV on Saturday and decided, man, we don't know no karate, but we're gonna be the Wu-Tang Clan. Right? Because you go watch a movie like that and everybody thinks they know karate. And that's the mindset of young people. But that's why it's important to have regulators so we can keep things balanced. Yeah. That's why and again, we can, obviously there are a number of ways we can have this conversation, but the reality is every experience will be different.
Right.
But I do think it's important that we bring attention to exploitation.
Absolutely.
Keep the storytellers in check. The Bible says in the book of Revelations, we overcame him, the devil, by the blood of the Lamb, the blood of Jesus, and by the words of our testimony.
Right.
We have to tell the story, and not every testimony is comfortable to share.
Right.
But it helps us. We grow from it. And so I think that's important.
Definitely. I agree. I mean, there's always a story to be told, and everyone has a perspective to share, from the Boys in the Hoods, to the Menace to Society. That joint is just so crazy though. If you ever seen it, it's like Boys in the Hood is here. Menace is like here. It's just a whole nother level.
I resonate with it too though, because
okay.
I was in that interview room when the detective was in there. I was that dude.
Right.
You didn't effed up, right?
Right.
Hey, I was that dude. You know what I'm saying? I was 15 years old. You didn't effed up, right?
Yeah.
There's something that, like Pastor was saying, controlling the narrative is important, because the narrative is what's being propagated right now to our young people.
Yeah.
And when we start thinking about how we handle things like Black Lives Matter and different other things, we have a voice and we know it. We saw it in the 60s and it was making changes, and they shut the voice down and changed it. And they changed the narrative of it. And now we can protest. We can do all these other things, and we'll suffer with you all protesting for, however long you want to, but then it's just going to go right back to the way it was, because we're not talking about anything else other than a system. The system is working the way it's supposed to work. And the interesting thing about this system is we're not enslaving people, or I can't say, the system has been set to enslave people. And now we're following right into the different nuances in the system that cause us to be incarcerated, right? So it's not the carceral system that's enslaving us, but it's the process that's putting us in those situations. There's processes that will put us there, and the movies and the music and everything else pumps our mind up. Smoke some weed, you're influenced by certain things. You're more easier. I can't even talk this morning.
More easily.
Easier influenced by certain things, right? And so we don't need slave movies to do it. We don't need, hood movies to do it. It's this process that's out there that keeps things moving in a certain way. Right. Now, when I think of slave movies, hood movies, the music, there's a sense of exposing and blaming, which is warranted. Like we want to expose this and we want to blame something. And it's warranted. But my personal opinion is it keeps us at odds with one another and not collectively reaching towards success.
Right.
Like these hood movies continue to perpetuate hood things, and not that they're not real. This is real. Like they were based upon reality. Rap music was based upon the reality of your community and what was going on in it. But then now it's exploited to the point where it puts people at odds with one another. And now we have a big problem with black on black crime. And I think black on black crime and everything that we see in the hood is rooted in slavery. But now the narrative is different. And since the narrative is different, we can't find our way out of it. We think that this is just the way it is. And that's my unpopular opinion of my experience, my interactions with thousands of people, and living it out. And so that's just a thought.
Yeah, got you. That's interesting. I think I hear what you're saying when it comes to the reasoning. I don't know. I do believe there is a way out. Like, you know, I always try to think high-minded. I always feel like change could always happen, even in the hardest neighborhoods. You know, it's a mindset change. It's an opportunity thing, because most times those situations happen because people feel a lack of opportunity, and the reality is, in some spaces, it's hard to find work and things of that nature. And if someone's offering you some quick cash, you know, you're in that space, you're like, like, I need this money by this week. Like, so, you know, you can get caught up in that kind of lifestyle. But I do feel like understanding where it comes from makes sense. You know, when you know where things come from, maybe it'll help with your mindset and change the trajectory of a neighborhood. I don't know. Like I when it comes to that, like really changing the hood, I have ideas, you know, but because I've never really lived in that space, you know, I always stop to think, you know, maybe it'll work, maybe it won't, you know. But for those that actually live that kind of lifestyle, you know, like, and you understand what it kind of takes to change. It takes the person wanting to get out of that situation, as well as changing opportunities in those places. But getting back to the education versus exploitation when it comes to media and movies, I don't really enjoy the hood movies. You know, I get them, like they're okay. Like some of them, they got great stories. You know, like they put together well. Some of them you just like, what's going on here? But shout out to Ice Cube and the Friday series that kind of made the hood light. You know, like we have fun, we laugh. You know, like it's not always running from guns. You know, and he kind of showed that, hey, listen, we have some days. They're good days. You know, so shout out to Ice Cube for putting a least lighter tone on hood situations. How do you guys feel? How do you feel, Kaneem, about some of the hood movies and things of that nature? Like you said, they're relatable. Like you said, the part of Menace Society being in the box. Do you feel like they're good for education, or do you feel like they're glorified? That's where I stand. Like, is it glorifying it? I mean, for the most part, most hood movies don't turn out well. You know, like
my own personal opinion is that I think all movies are based on entertainment. You know what I'm saying? So it's your own perception if you're getting educated. If you've never experienced something like that before, then you're getting educated whether you want to or not. Because now you're getting exposed to something that you ain't never seen or heard before.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But for me on hood movies, I think of them as entertainment. You know what I'm saying? I can relate to some of them. Right. Some of them I've seen kind of far-fetched. You know what I'm saying? Some of them is just, you know, strictly to either catch a joke or be sensationalized. But it's still entertainment to me. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, I myself personally just think of it as entertainment. So is it education, exploitation? My scale don't lean one way or the other on it. For me, it's just entertainment.
Okay. So, for you guys, has like Pastor mentioned the karate movies, and I don't know about you. We watch the Saturday morning karate movies, and you get hyped like, oh, I think I could do the kick with the jump.
Oh yeah, man. I done had all that.
Have you been influenced by hood movies that same way? Like, ooh, get me a Glock, you know?
I have.
Okay.
I have. I've done that also. Got hyped, but then again, I was under the influence of all kind of narcotics. You know what I'm saying? So when I did see the movie, I was usually wasn't by myself when I saw it.
Right.
So I had a little group. You know how they say mob mentality. I had a little group mentality.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? We finna go out. We finna go do this. We finna go do it. It wasn't I'm about to go do this. It was we about to go do this.
Right. You wasn't going to put work into Babyface. You had some get on or something else, right? Some 8-ball MJG.
Yeah, all that. Yeah. I mean, when you like that was it. It was the music, it was the movies, but it was also when I walked out the door, I saw the movie and the music. You know what I'm saying? Wow. It ain't like I went out into suburbia and it was houses. No, we was in a complex.
Right.
It wasn't the projects.
Right.
It was a complex that had no gates. Everybody was at the corner store, and we had a corner store inside the apartment complex. You feel what I'm saying?
Wow.
Like it ain't like you had to go out to it.
Right.
It was inside the apartment complex.
Wow. Okay.
So you know, I mean, like I was in the city. I wasn't in the suburbs. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of people like, oh, you was in the didn't know. I was in the city. You know what I'm saying? Like it wasn't the outskirts.
Right.
You feel what I'm saying? Yeah. So I mean, my view is different than a lot of people.
Right.
Yeah, Eddie, I want to touch on something.
In 2005, ask someone a question back in 2005. Is someone growing up in a 3-block radius limited to what they see because of gang violence, drug dealers, you know, just hood stuff? Is that person considered a victim?
Oh,
remember that question?
Mm-hmm.
People say anybody. If you want to get out, you can get out. Right. And for those who never get out, the question is: are those victims, or did they just not apply themselves? You know, the scripture again. Back to the scripture says, "My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge." Right. People live limited lives because people don't read. People don't get exposed to things. If this is all you know, well, it's all I know. It's all I know.
Right. We talk about that.
Right.
All I know.
Is that an excuse, or have you been victimized?
That's good.
I guess it just depends on the individual, because you could actually, if you actually participate, you actually are now the suspect instead of being a victim. So if
you participate because it's all you know, you were groomed, are you a victim?
But no, you was raised that way. You just explained your own question.
I think
you were groomed. You were groomed that you were raised that way.
Right.
If you are a victim, it happened to you and you didn't want it. It was unexpected. Somebody come bust your side of your head and you don't see it coming, you're a victim.
Right.
But if you raised that way, hey, I want you to go here. I want you to sneak up behind this dude when he ain't looking. Make sure you go for his wallet, and if he go for you, you bust. You getting taught to be.
But what if it's not being taught? What if, like you said, you walk outside and you just, that's all I know. I see, this is what I see every single day. You don't have to tell me to do it. I'm gonna pick it up because I'm watching you.
Right.
I'm learning.
But that's also, for those that pick it up because it's just natural and that's all you see. There's also those that don't want to see that. There's also those that back off of it. I don't want to be like Peanut. I don't want to be like Ray Ray. I don't want to go out here and sell drugs. I want to read a book. I want to see something different.
Right.
But they don't have the opportunity to see something different, but that's what they want. So I've seen that in the hood also.
Okay.
Yeah.
But there's another influence there usually when you see that in the hood.
Right.
There's
That
something else
is
that
true. And it's usually from the school system or whatever
Right.
school you was trying to go to.
a coach.
It's that one teacher, yep, that one teacher, that one coach
Yeah.
that really dug into your mind and be like, hey, you can be better than
another-
this.
Right.
Right. You don't have to do this.
But you know, there has to be some kind of structure in their regular lives also to allow them to overcome what's around them. Because if there's no structure, you can have all the influence you want at school,
Right.
come home and you have to live real life. You know, when I teach my classes, I tell everybody this all the time. Right now, this message, everything that we're learning right now is amazing to you. But then when we leave this class, you have to go back to real life.
Right.
That's where you have to start to make this work. You have to put the work in, because if you don't, real life is still waiting there. As soon as you walk out the door, it's going to jump on your back again. And so a lot of times we forget that's what's going to happen. Someone who's groomed this way, you know, we talked about Menace to Society. The first lyric in the soundtrack song, it's a effed up child has got me the way I am. It's got me to the state where I don't give a somebody help me. But they don't hear me though. I guess I'll be another victim of the ghetto. All right.
Right.
Going and going and going, right? But the reality is when we start thinking about being a victim of the ghetto, yeah, there is victimization happening, but there's also the realization that a lot of times we don't, you know, going back to what AD was saying, I believe the hood can change. I'm not saying I don't believe it.
Yeah.
I think there's a collective mindset out there
Yeah.
that doesn't believe it, right?
Right.
But one of the things you said is, I have all these ideas and thoughts, but when I get to this point, I don't have this experience. You know what's going to take to change the hood? It's going to take people like that don't have the experience, who are willing to sacrifice a part of their life to say, you know what, I'm going to make this change regardless. I'm going to, by faith, go out there and trust that what I need to do to make this impact is going to work. And I'm going to find people who will come alongside of me and do this. It kind of reminds me of the Underground Railroad. And when we start thinking about, if we're going to get people to change, there's going to be a whole group of people out there that don't want to leave slavery because they're afraid of massa, right? But when Harriet Tubman comes along and you know she's coming, there's a whole group of people out there that say, hey, I've been waiting for you. And so that's what we have to understand is like, there's this idea of we can't make a change, so we might as well not make any change. And the reality is we start making change right where we're at. And I have this mindset that each one teach 100. I don't have a mindset that each one teach one. That's old, that's antiquated, and we're losing people at more than a one-on-one basis, right? Each one teach 100. And what does that look like? It means if I teach my 100, then hopefully I can teach them to teach their 100. If I get 5 out of that 100 to teach 100, then that's 5 people teaching 500 more,
Right.
you know, 100 each. And so, and if they get 5 out of that, then it exponentially grows and we can start to make that difference. But we have to look at exponential growth and not just one-on-one growth or 1-on-10 growth. If we start to disciple people like we're called to do, then people understand what it looks like to live a whole different way while understanding the system that's still against them, while understanding that slavery still existed, while understanding there's a form of slavery still right now, while understanding, yes, all these barriers are there that will hold you back. But at the same time, there is a way out. Do you want to know that way? If so, let's go. And so that's important for us to understand. And when we talk about these movies and everything else and educational pieces, now as we have someone guiding us this way, we can watch these movies as an educational piece and not a glorification. We can watch it as something that will allow us to understand a situation better while not being exploited or going off of a negative narrative. We have to be able to engage differently. Otherwise, I'm not possible. If there wasn't people in my life guiding me and helping me and talking to me, even people while I was in prison who were older than me, talking to me and sharing information with me, If that didn't happen, I'm not possible. So, because I'm still sitting here trying to figure it out. And what I'm doing is I'm kicking information around in my head that doesn't have any foundation to it. Therefore, I'm just having all these thoughts in my head and living it out. And that's what happens with people. We find ourselves by ourselves. So we go to movies and we get our truth from movies and music and everything else. And
Right.
that's the way we think we should live. This is what manhood looks like.
Yeah.
This is what it looks like to be a black man in America. This is what we have to stand up and protest against.
Right.
We don't have anything else helping us walk through that process.
Do we?
I love everything you said, man. And I love that mantra of I'll tell 100, I'll reach 100 as opposed to 1. When you said it, I almost challenged you on it because I immediately went back to the idolatry of Israel and the Lord saying 1 can put 1,000 to flight and 2, 10,000.
All right.
Fighting for what you believe in, right?
Right.
I still believe that to get to 100, you have to get to 1.
True.
So my focus is always on the next 1, but my goal is the 1,000, believing that the 1 can put 1,000 to flight.
Right.
So I love that mindset, man, and that has helped me. I love that. I don't want to limit my conversation to touching 1. I want to stretch or expose or expand my conversation to my desire, to my ultimate goal. And that is as many as I can possibly touch, which takes us to Matthew 28. Right. So I believe I love that. I want to go back to something that was said earlier. And this is dealing with the testimony, what you got out of that movie, Menace to Society. While he was going through his challenges, he did have those voices. He had Charles Dutton's role.
Yeah.
The father of his friend, the teacher who said the hunt is on.
Right.
He had Jada Pinkett Smith's role.
Yeah.
The girl who said, you need to get out of here.
Right.
Right. And he struggled. He wrestled with it because in his mind, the only thing he felt he could trust was his hood, his boys, that life. Yeah. And he felt like that's all he had.
Yeah.
Right. In the movie Dangerous Minds, Michelle Pfeiffer worked real hard on those twins.
Right.
But it was their grandmother who pulled them out of school,
right.
Made them come home and say, these boys got to go to work. Yeah. Now, the grandmother felt like she was a bigger positive influence. Yeah. But Michelle Pfeiffer was thinking, the teacher was thinking long term. Right. Grandma was thinking, I need to pay this rent.
Right.
Right. And so the twins were caught. They were in a tug of war with education versus productivity from home.
Right.
That's the trap.
Yeah.
That's the trap.
Yeah, indeed. I think, when I was just thinking about that while you guys were talking, like if your parents are your greatest influence, and if they're about that life, it's like, who am I to go against the one in my house that's been teaching, training, and raising me for however long?
You're your teacher, but you ain't the one cooking.
Right. Right. So
tough,
you ain't living in my house, know. So it's those that's probably like the biggest, I guess, victimization I'll give that stamp. And I do hear you, like Kaneem was saying, the teacher, the coach, it's just someone trying to give you some words to see something different. But if most of 90% of it around you is pulling you this way, and you have those 10%, somebody like, hey, and teachers like you, like if you're teaching somebody, if you've been there, you can see it in their eyes. Like, I can see where you're at. Don't go down this path, Yeah. But it's all you know. And
it makes people feel like that's where that whole concept of mindset of being a cursed nation, people still believe.
Yeah.
There are people who still believe we're under a curse.
Under a curse. Right.
Because they don't have the knowledge of the scripture that says Jesus reversed the curse.
Right.
And what we're left with is the practice of iniquity. And that's what get passed down. It ain't the curse. It's the practice. It's the behavior of the unlearned, the uneducated, the unexposed. That's what it is. And so, in other words, you destroy yourselves.
Yeah. But I like what you said, Thomas. The one on each one, teach 100. You know,
Yeah.
I agree.
And it's exactly what Pastor said. It's going to one, but not stopping at one. You know, a lot of times you'll get a mentor who will mentor one person for 15, 20 years. And like, I did my job and that's it, you know? And the reality is if you can mentor someone for years, then you can mentor many for years because you have a blueprint.
Right.
And so you can really begin to engage their life in that way. You know, when we start thinking about the things that people go through and how these movies influence and impact everybody, the one thing we can't lose sight of is it's real. They're living their reality right now. We can't not say that, you know, your reality is not what it is. And that's important for us not to forget that our reality is not their reality. And how they pick up information and where they decide to go, whether they decide to listen to the positive influences or negative influences, are determined a lot of times by what's going on in their life. It's the trauma that they've experienced in life. You know, when we have certain trauma and you feel insecurities, you feel as if, you know, statistically that I'm a black male in America. I'm not statistically supposed to live past 21 years old. That creates an urgency of, you know, if I don't do something, then I'm going to die in the hood because I see people dying in the hood all the time.
Right.
And so there's this collective mindset that we have to realize that what people are living is real. We can't discount what is going on, but we cannot think that it's not worthwhile to try to reach them. And I, you know, again, the tagline in my nonprofit is, as long as a person has a heartbeat, there's an opportunity for redemption. Right. And so we have to remember that every life is redeemable. Every life has something inside of them that says, I want something different to take place. Right. I don't want to continue to remember slavery. I know slavery. What else is there? How can I learn? Right. How are you going to help me move forward? Right. And, you know, if all I'm hearing in my music is, you know, sex, money, guns, and all these other things, what do you think I'm going to wrap around my life if I have access to it? Sex, money, and guns. And so whatever I have access to, that's what I'm going to do. Yeah. So give me access to other things and maybe I'll do something different.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah. All right, guys. So I appreciate you guys for being here, rocking with us. Another edition of the Brothers of Legacy. We're talking about education versus exploitation. Hopefully you got a little something out of this. We just kind of want to shed light on some topics that we don't talk about enough of. Okay, look like I was freezing. So this episode is brought to you by Spectrum. All right, so we look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow. Same time, same channel. Oh man, it's Friday. Freestyle Friday tomorrow. Yes, it's gonna be an interesting conversation. Thank you, Mama Corey. Appreciate you. I got Pastor. Hopefully, Pastor can be on. He's gonna share a story about millennial love. The state of what relationships are looking like. So
you might have to make that a series.
Right. The state of the millennial relationships. What's it gonna look like? So we look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow, same time, same channel. Make sure you continue to stay connected to us. Text LWN to 84576. Text LWN to 84576. Never miss a broadcast or anything happening on the Legacy Walking Network. And if you're feeling a need that you feel like, I like these brothers, I want to support, you can also support us through Cash App, $BOL 2019, $BOL 2019. Or you can go to brothersoflegacy.com and click Beyond Donations. All right. So as always, we appreciate you. Continue to support us. Make sure you share. Sharing means a lot. Check out the podcast as well. And that's it. A point of reference.
I don't remember who mentioned it or not, but for anyone that has not seen breaking news today, Brittany Griner has been released from the Russian prison in a prisoner swap. So we have something to be thankful for this morning, that Brittany Griner is headed back to her family. She should be back with her family within the next 24 hours.
Yes. All right. All hearts and minds are clear.
Yes, sir.
All right. 988, you or someone else, someone you love, or someone is having a mental health crisis, make sure you dial 988-988. All right. Let's see. And yes, he said Spectrum back. Right. He said, yes, that was awesome to see. Indeed. All right. So we look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow. Stay safe, do the right thing, make good choices, and we'll see you in the AM. Peace out.